on that field today, ask yourself this question.
What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Let's go! We made it! We made it! We made it! We made it! And don't do that! And don't do that!
When I step on the field, I send one message. And this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. Football is getting hit. That's it.
It's gonna be football now. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's hunt now. Let's hunt now. Let's go. Let's hunt. We made it. And don't do that. And don't do that.
We're talking about the Jets like we're talking about the Saints. You know, all this, how like we the Miami Heat of football. Yeah. The bottom line is you got to buckle up your chin strap. It's embarrassing. Yeah. Don't disrespect the game like that. There's too much crying from them. He's a man. They can be hit just like us. He's a man. You already make the big money. He's a man. Don't cry when you step on the field, man. That's war out there. When I step on the field, I send one message. This is what it feels like. Oh, my bad. Your bad don't work in my world.
What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Game time. What time is it? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We made it. And don't do that. And don't do that. It's a wrap. Game over.
It's not over. It's just getting started. Hey, everybody. It's me, Kris Gardner, KG. Welcome to another edition of Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E. Kennetra Pulliams will be joining me shortly, and Andy Yanez will be joining us at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk sports. AJ Jones gave me the keys to the kingdom again. Bless his heart. I hope he knows what he's doing. I guess that means he trusts me to run the show, run the board here on Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E on BS3 Network, available on Roku. So let's get right into it. I did not watch last night Rockets game because I expected it to be a butt whooping in favor of the OKC Thunder, and it was. Rockets lost 133-96. Trailed by as much as 40 points in the game. Rockets are now 13-45 as they head into the All-Star break. Haven't received word today on the results of the MRI for Jalen Green and his injured groin that he suffered late in the second quarter, I believe. But my goodness, Rocket fans, if you're tuning in, thank you very much for joining us here on the Rockets trailed by as much as 42. I stand corrected. It was not 40, 42. But you get the idea when you got Frank Kaminsky playing 13 minutes. Darius Days got 17 minutes. Trevor Hudson got 13 minutes. Boban got 7 minutes. You get the idea. Wednesday night was another butt whooping. We can talk about that. We can also talk about Kenny Smith's comments saying the Rockets, Kenny Smith and I have kind words to say about the Rockets organization and how they're set up. Quoting, let's see if I can pull it up, where Kenny Smith in a media call Wednesday. Rocket fans can relate to this. Young doesn't mean good. Young doesn't mean promising. Young is just young. I don't look at them and go, oh, wow, that's a young team that's promising and the talent is going to succeed. Right now, they're one of the worst teams in professional sports. What is making me say that? They're moving in the right way. I've seen nothing that makes me say, wow, this team is young and they have an opportunity to break through when they get one other player, Victor Wembanyama. I don't know who would help. I have no clue. End quote from Kenny Smith, part of the Rocket championship teams and, of course, part of the TNT Inside the NBA crew. So what are your thoughts about what Kenny the Jet Smith had to say about the Houston Rockets? This goes along with the bad habits and the John Wall comments about the organization being trash. We can talk about that once Kennetra and Andy join me here on the lunch break here. Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E. We're going to talk about that. My goodness, I'm going to talk about the Houston Cougars men's game. That's one reason Andy's going to join us this at the bottom of the hour. The Cougs men's team, the 23-2 Houston Cougars men's team, 11-1 in the American Athletic Conference, the number one ranked team in the net in KenPom and a lot of the metrics. We're number 2 again, despite Purdue losing for the second straight week. Got jumped by Alabama, who was from 3rd to 1. And then Alabama lost last night on the road to Tennessee. So if the Cougs win tonight on the road at SMU, won't be a cakewalk. Got to get that one. And then they got to beat Memphis at home on Sunday afternoon. If they do those two things, the Cougs should be number 1 in those, I think, obsolete coaches poll and the Associated Press poll. Hit me up on your thoughts on that as well. We're watching. You can tune in on, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course, the BS3 network on Roku as well. If you have your Roku streaming device, just download BS3 TV. If not, just go to bs3network.com. Once again, I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, filling in for AJ Jones. He's taking care of some other business. He's not sick. He's not under the weather. So he's just taking care of some other things, and he asked me to fill in if I can. Ben, how you doing? Good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for chiming in with your comments. We're going to take a quick break in a few minutes. I'm going to play some post-game comments from Ronald Hughey, head coach of the Houston Cougars women's basketball team. The Cougs lost last night at home, 45-44 to Memphis, just days after the Cougs won on the road, defeating top 25 ranked South Florida 71-69, and was probably Houston's best first half for sure all season. The Cougs won that game Sunday afternoon. The game was on ESPN2. They ended South Florida's 12-game win streak. Had all this momentum. They were in second place in the conference, all to themselves. And then followed up last night, Wednesday, losing 45-44. Had a chance to win the game in the final seconds, missed 2 free throws, and lost 45-44. Houston Cougars lost to Memphis at home. Here's these comments from Ronald Hughey. He was very disappointed in the loss, and he should be. And we're going to talk more about this with Andy Yanez when he joins us at the bottom of the hour. But here are these comments from Ronald Hughey, UH women's basketball coach, after Wednesday's 45-44 loss to the Memphis Tigers.
I say hats off to Trina and her team. Came out really after the first half. We haven't really rattled 7 points each quarter in the first half, and second half they made some adjustments. And that's a really good team. Like I told our team, they got 2 scorers that can really play. And but the name of the game tonight was just second chance points for them and rebounding. It was 51-36 or 38, something like that. I think they had like over 20 offensive rebounds. So again, toughest team win. One of the ultimate measures of the toughness on your team is rebounding. And so we got to get back to the drawing board of doing that and just the energy of taking care of our business. I got so many calls about making sure your team is ready to play this game after a big win, because it's usually, you lose that next game. So we had an opportunity to talk about that. So I thought our energy and our effort and our mentality was there in the first half. Just the second half, we stumbled a little bit in that third and fourth quarter. But, yeah, that was it.
Coach, first half rebounding was pretty much even.
Yeah.
So what, in your opinion, what do you think changed second half on the boards?
Well, you got foul trouble first, Tatiana, then Brittany, those kids that really go all the time. That was the first thing. Then Layla, another one that you can count on for 1 or 2 at that time, or at least doing the job of boxing people out. And now You have, different people in different rotations doing those kind of things, but everybody's, job is to box out and rebound. So it's no excuse for that. But, when you got that foul trouble and those kind of things like that, it is attributes to it.
The shots your team got, were you good with them?
Down the stretch, I thought we could have been better, 10 times better. It just kept going in that zone. And when we tried the ball screen, they switched it. And so we ended up getting that corner look or those high post looks. And again, we wanted to drive it a little bit more and put more pressure on them. We were just letting them have an opportunity to watch us shoot those threes. We need to attack more, get to the rim, get to the paint. But we were in a bonus, and we didn't take advantage of that.
In your opinion, do you think your team took the foot off the gas at halftime?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's a thing that we talked about at halftime, not doing that, not taking anything for granted. Again, coming out like it's the first quarter. And we came out with some of that foul and stuff, and it always stalemates us some. And that's the first thing that started that downhill roller coaster for us.
Talk about the fourth quarter where after the first media timeout, when both teams are going back and forth, which is it didn't happen Sunday, but tonight it was one of those almost like a crutch.
Exactly. We don't have key players on the floor. Layla Blair played the entire game down in South Florida. And she played half the game here, barely half the game, not even 20 minutes because of fouls. Tatiana, same thing. So again, we don't have the key players on the floor, and they do have key players on the floor. It's those kids that have to make plays, and so when they come back in, it's like Tatiana at the end of the South Florida game getting the tip to make a score, and she had 11 boards this game, but couldn't finish any around the rim this time. So again, a little bit of focus and those kind of things. And absolutely, they were keying on Layla to make sure she didn't get any of those shots and fouling her a little bit just to make sure. But again, going right at her as well to try to get her out of the game, and she didn't respond defensively and got in foul trouble.
How disappointing is this loss after Sunday's big win?
Very, very disappointing. We had a chance to continue to separate ourselves from the pack. You take care of South Florida team who's beating everybody in the conference, and then you come back and you slip against a Memphis team, a really good Memphis team. But again, you got them at home, and you got them right where you want them after the first half. So a game we felt like we should have won, but again, didn't take care of business down the stretch to be able to do that.
Once again, that was head coach Ronald Huey, Houston Cougars women's basketball coach, after Wednesday's 45-44 home loss to the Memphis Tigers. I'm Kris Gardner. You're watching Throwback Thursday on the lunch break powered by JM&E. We'll be right back, and Kennetra Pulliams will be joining me after this quick break.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
And we're back, and as you see on the screen right there, Kennetra, the Queen Pulliams. How are you doing, ma'am?
Happy Thursday, Kris.
Happy Friday Eve, Kennetra.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah, happy Friday Eve. We'll go with that. Once again, welcome to Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E and also on the BS3 network. If you have a Roku streaming device, just download BS3 TV. If not, just go to bs3network.com. All right, Kennetra, Miss Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. What has been a difference for the Kansas Jayhawks these last few games?
I don't think it's so much of a difference. They knew the strength and the depth of the Big 12 this season, that every team was going to face speed bumps or potholes, depending how you want to look at it. It just so happened that KU's all came in succession. So, yeah, they lost 3 games, but if you look at it now, they're tied for first. So, being that those losses came back to back to back, yeah, it was like almost panic mode, but Bill Self just said, stay the course, because every team has to, the same teams that KU lost to, every other team has to play those same teams. So it's not like the schedule is unbalanced. It's, it's a true round robin. And so KU still has in front of them 2 of those teams that beat them in TCU and in Baylor. You're playing Baylor Saturday on College Game Day at home, and then you follow that up and you go to TCU for Big Monday. So, KU can right the ship, if you will.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you'll be at the game Saturday?
I will. I'll be at both. I'll be at all remaining KU games.
Pre and post game, correct?
Pre and post game, 30-minute pregame, 1 hour post game.
And fans can watch that where?
On Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus.
And let's we've talked about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What is the response, reaction to the fans about, or Big 12 fans, KU fans, about Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus?
You have those maybe old school, if you will, fans who don't understand having to pay extra for a streaming service to get games that previously were shown over the air. Even like local channels, like non-cable channels, you'd be able to see those third-tier games. But it's not isolated to just KU fans. It's across the league that, there are certain games, and maybe you can understand non-conference games being shown, those that don't have as high demand or interest, being showed on ESPN Plus, but it's hard for fans to digest having to pay a streaming service to watch a conference game, especially when it's a conference game against in-state rivals or a conference game against teams that are in contention for a Big 12 title. But that's just kind of the way it's designed, because, if you look at the other conferences, if you look at ACC Network, SEC Network, Big Ten Network, while, yes, there's an app, there's also a cable channel, if you will, that you can turn to. That's just kind of part of the ESPN brand, that you could just find, kind of an alternate channel to watch those games, to where you don't necessarily, they might be streaming, but they're also over there. So there's 2 ways to catch it. And so it'd be great if the Big 12 in its new version, once U of H and Cincinnati and BYU, UCF join, that you can get a digital channel, but also get the app or the streaming service to be able to watch it on the go if you're not in front of a screen, a TV screen, say at home or on the road.
And you and I also talked about a linear network for the Big 12. It doesn't seem feasible from what I've heard, read, told. Even Commissioner Yormark, I asked him about it. He didn't really answer it. Well, I hoped, there was discussion about the Longhorn Network being converted to the Big 12 network for linear programming. And then all that equipment is on Austin on the UT campus. So that wasn't going to be feasible. So it doesn't seem likely. But I turn it around in this sense. It seems inevitable that more and more folks are going to watch via streaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Big 12 is just ahead of the curve right now. with a lot of games, specifically the Olympic sports, on Big 12 now on ESPN Plus, and like the discussion for the Pac-12. The Pac-12, the next media rights deal seems to be not all, but majority of a streaming platform. And folks are saying, "Oh, that's real bad, real bad." Well, the Big 12 has linear with ESPN, ESPN2, but they also have streaming. So I think Big 12 is positioning itself the best possible of any conference that's not Big 10 or SEC. What do you think about that?
Why can't it be both? Why can't you, have the ESPN app on your phone and still be able to access, if you already have ESPN as part of your media package, why can't those games that for instance, Monday night or Tuesday, KU Oklahoma State, that was on ESPN. You could watch it at home, you could watch it laptop, whatever. You didn't have to pay extra. So why can't Big 12, why can't you do both? Why do you have to have a separate subscription to catch those games, those conference games? Why can't you just, games that are on ESPN or ESPN2, you can stream, you can download, you can watch them digitally. Why can't it be both? Why can't you simulcast them?
Okay. You're Commissioner Yormark. You fix it. You give me your suggestions on how to correct it.
I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But he was in Stillwater Tuesday night at the Oklahoma State KU game. And so he was just talking about his vision, and just kind of doing more in the storytelling brand, doing more to have a symbiotic relationship between music and content and sports and Big 12. So he referred back to, having Ashanti at the Big 12 football championship game back in December. He's really intrigued, and you can kind of see the wheels spinning about having a halftime show next year, kind of in what we saw at the Super Bowl with Rihanna. He announced plans for the Big 12 men's basketball tournament this year in March here in Kansas City, of having Fat Joe Friday, of having DJ Diesel, also known as Shaquille O'Neal, perform on Saturday. So you'll have Shaq Saturday, Fat Joe Friday. So he's,
Whoa. Fat Joe as in the Fat Joe?
That's what he said.
Okay, I'm all for that. But how do you think
that's his Rock Nation background? So he's really big on kind of using music as the thread to kind of weave all of it together. So
how do you think the older fans of the Big 12 will react to that? A Fat Joe Friday and a Shaq Diesel Saturday.
But that's not his target audience, right?
See that? Great point.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's one thing more and more older fans are going to have to accept.
Yeah.
I mean, that's reality of it. Commissioner Brett Yormark is trying to reach a younger demographic.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to alienate the older demographic, but he's trying to make the Big 12 more recognizable to a younger alums, younger fans. And if they can grow up at a younger age, be Big 12 fans, and then grow up to become Big 12 alums, then you got fans for life.
Right. But at the same time, when's the last time Ashanti had a hit?
True. Now you get into who is the current star of Rock Nation
that you could get.
Yes, that students recognize.
All right.
So here.
Same thing with Fat Joe. I'm like, okay.
There you go, right there. Cole Sports says Big 12 fans in the future have to lean back. Yeah, on the weekends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now that I think about it, who is the current it person for Rock Nation? Is there one?
You're not.
Maybe Andy will know once he joins us.
You're not going to get Jay-Z to reform. So let's squash that idea. But yeah.
Why not though? Why not? I mean, what would that take? I'm serious. Because Brett, I think he has worked with Jay-Z in the past, right?
Yeah. He talked about his relationship, with Jay-Z, but also, and then also his background, with the Brooklyn Nets. But I mean, I just think, yeah, it takes a lot more cachet, a lot of deep pockets, you know, to kind of lure, you know, Jay-Z to come to Kansas City in March. You know, we can be aspirational.
Yes, definitely. But would it be similar? Could it be similar to how the NFL does it? Like Rihanna and those celebrities, the halftime celebrity, they pay for that.
Right.
So the celebs pay for that. So do you think the Big 12 could get to that point where the celeb would pay to do it?
Yeah. So the celebs, you know, yeah, they don't make any money off of it, but their production and all of those expenses are paid for, you know, by the league. But I mean, yeah, but basically, if you have something to promote, because I mean, it's not like, you know, Rihanna has any new music. But she is her own brand.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she was going to bring a special guest on stage with her. And she did that.
And she did, yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, she played that very well.
And she probably got a boost in her music, her catalog for sure with the appearance. So it worked out for her.
I mean, and then the whole Fenty brand.
You know, and I'm not sure Fat Joe would get a boost performing at the Big 12, but who knows? But how about for revenue streams for the Big 12? Any idea of what Commissioner Yormark has in store for generating revenue? Outside source.
I don't know what his plans are, you know, in that avenue. You know, it's still kind of he's you know, been on the job less than a year, so he's still just kind of trying to get his bearings, if you will, especially, you know, with the new landscape, you know, coming now. We have some more clarity of what the Big 12, how the Big 12 will look, because now there's an exit strategy for Oklahoma and for Texas, you know, leaving after the 2024. So after 2023. So we kind of know how this is going to play out, you know, now, and the football schedule has finally been released for the upcoming season. So we kind of know, because it's trying to schedule with 14 teams is very awkward,
right?
You know, so when you get back to 12, you're like, okay, so now you can kind of, and I'm not saying that the Big 12 is going to stand pat at 12. He's still kind of exploring the ideas of bringing in, you know, Gonzaga. That carrot has been dangled.
Very good, Kennetra. That's a tease for the next discussion after the break. You're good. You're a professional at this job. Well done.
I just, you know, just lots of little nuggets to nibble on during our lunch break.
And all that brings up a good point right here. As long as it's tasteful, because there are young kids, and you don't want to, you know, alienate any of those fans for sure.
And I mean, and it's not just young fans. There's a certain segment of the population. Case in point, late night a few years ago when we had Snoop performing as the featured musical artist, and he brought his aerial acrobats.
And that was a KU, right? Wasn't that?
It was a KU.
Yeah. There was some feedback from that, wasn't it? Yeah.
And the young fan, it wasn't the young fans who took offense.
Yes. So that's a very good point. So we're going to talk about that when we come back after this break. You are watching. I am Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, and joining me is Kennetra Pulliams from Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus. We are filling in for AJ Jones. He is taking care of business. He is not sick. He's just taking care of some business, and he asked if I would be willing to drive or fly the bus, conduct the train, or whatever you want to call it. Now I'm not sure, or the EV, whatever.
No, since it's the lunch break, you're the head chef.
Okay, I'm the head chef, and you're my sous chef.
There we go.
Kennetra's myself. Bravo! See, that's why you're here, part of the show. So, once again, you're watching Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E and also the BS3 Network, and we will be right back in about 70 seconds. Going to play this from a man, AJ Jones.
Are you looking for something to do on your lunch break? Well, there's a show on the BS3 Network that has only 4 words to say to you.
We ready. We ready. We ready for y'all. We ready.
with AJ, powered by JM&E. Live weekdays at noon Central.
And once again, we are not AJ Jones. We are filling in for AJ Jones. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Joining me is Kennetra Pulliams, the sous chef to my head chef here on the lunch break. I like this comment from Tony M. I like two comments from Tony M. First one, sorry, saying no Janet Jackson. Is that one? And
Well,
what do you think
not for the Big 12 tournament, but she will be in the same venue. She'll be at T-Mobile Center in concert in May on her tour. So
okay. And then next from Tony M. College football halftime shows already ride the line with the bands and majorettes. Not quite the same though. If you get Fat Joe.
Right. And I mean, and then there's a difference between halftime shows at PWIs and halftime shows at HBCUs.
A big difference. A very big difference. But yes, and we can talk about that. I'm waiting for Andy to chime in because I hope he knows the answer to who is the current it person at Rock Nation, if there is one, because I'm not sure there is one. But you're watching Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E and also on the BS3 network. If you have a Roku streaming device, just download BS3 TV. If not, just go to bs3network.com. Kennetra, I'm going to pick a bone with the bracketologists. I'm going to probably make you shake your head a little bit about what I'm going to say.
I'm intrigued.
And Andy knows where I'm going to bring him in now. So Andy knows what I'm going to say here, but I'm going to have some numbers to back it up. Andy Yanez from Gallery Sports. How are you, young man?
I'm doing good, Chris. How are you two doing here today on this cloudy Thursday afternoon in the city of Houston?
We're doing pretty well. Quick question for you before I go on my rant. Andy, do you know who is the current star it person at Rock Nation?
Well, Chris, I was prepared for this because I was listening to the show before I tuned in, and I didn't know that he was affiliated with Rock Nation, but it's got to be Lil Uzi, who is affiliated with Rock Nation. If you don't know who Lil Uzi is, he's actually the Houston Cougars, the men's basketball team, used his song to come out for their pregame warm-up. They're basically their intro video. I would say he's probably the biggest name that they have. They have DJ Khaled as well. They have Moneybagg Yo. So they got a couple of names. And honestly, I didn't know they were affiliated with Rock Nation, but those would have to be the biggest names.
So when we did the History of Hip Hop compilation performance at the Grammys, and we saw Lil Uzi. There we go.
Yeah.
Andy, see, that's why you're on the show, because I had no idea. I mean, I know DJ Khaled, but Lil Uzi, if he walked into my house right now, I wouldn't know he was. Sorry.
You got to know his latest song. Everyone loves I Just Want to Rock.
No. If it's played at a Coos game, then I've probably heard it, most.
Oh, you've heard it?
Yeah.
You've definitely heard it.
I mean, who does the
you
Swag Surfing
every
song? Who does that song?
The Swag Surfing song?
Yeah, whatever that is in there. I don't even, whatever. But see, I'm showing my age, and I'm like aging before the audience. And that's okay, because as old people, I'm going to rant, and I'm going to do a get off my lawn moment to the bracketologists like Jerry Palm and other people. Kennetra, we know, everyone has said, Andy, you as well, Cole Sports, All Mad, Tony, and everybody. The Big 12 is the best conference in men's basketball. No question. Everybody in the Big 12 is a quad 1, quad 2 win, on and on and on and on and on, right? We all get there. But no one talks about the non-conference strength of schedule for these Big 12 schools. And now we're going to get to my discussion. The Houston Cougars, the number one team ranked in the net, Ken Palm metrics, their strength of schedule, non-conference, is 62. Okay? Non-conference strength of schedule, 62. Kennetra, how many of the 10 teams in the Big 12 have a non-conference strength of schedule better than 62?
I don't know.
Give me a number.
I'd say 5.
Andy.
Yeah, I'd probably stick around 5.
Okay. I'm glad y'all said that. Count what I say schools better than 62. Kansas, 18. Texas, 120. Baylor, 45. Iowa State, 105. K-State, 297. West Virginia, 84. TCU, 262. Oklahoma State, 191. Texas Tech, 316. And Oklahoma, 81.
2?
Thank you. 2.
2.
Yet, up until a few weeks ago, before K-State went on the losing skid, they were being considered as a 1 seed, despite having a non-conference strength of schedule of almost 300. I have a massive problem with that. It's as if some bracketologists forgot basketball began in November or December. It only started in the Big 12. Oh, you played the whole conference, played the schedule in the Big 12. Okay, let's forget about everything else. Not 297, and they're being considered for a 1 seed. Give me a break.
Well, they weren't considered a 1 seed in November. They weren't considered a 1. When were they considered a 1 seed? Based on what?
But it's the body of work.
No.
Based
On
who they beat.
Were they considered a 1 seed in November or
Of
December?
course not.
No, they weren't.
They were considered
They
that.
were only considered a 1 seed once what happened? Once Big 12 conference play started and they started beating teams. That's when they earned their projection.
But my issue is, and the committee does this, as in the basketball selection committee, they weigh the body of work. That's what they say.
It also has to pass the eye test of what you did most recently. They evaluate you differently on what you did in February and March than what you did in November.
The bracketologists do, not the committee. The committee doesn't. That's different. And I'm going to say that because Jerry Palm and I are the only 2 people media-wise in all of college sports who have participated in the mock selection for men's hoops and women's hoops. So Jerry Palm, we were across the table from each other at the mock selection for the men's basketball. So he should know better and include and count non-conference strength of schedule. Hell, he bumped Texas over the Cougs, despite the Longhorns' non-conference strength of schedule being worse than the 120 is worse than 62. Okay? And hey, I know it's going to be a moot point because come July 1st, the Cougs will be in the Big 12. But my point is, the system is weighted so much. If you're not in the Power 5, it doesn't matter what you do in conference play. Because, well, it's not in the Big 12. You're not in the best conference in basketball. You're not going to get a lot of chances of quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 wins. So that's my issue. How are you going to penalize teams for not being in the Big 12? It's not their fault.
So you're saying that your non-conference schedule should hold the same weight as your conference schedule?
It needs to matter in the discussion. It has to matter because it's the body of work.
Okay.
That's what they say.
Right. It can matter, but how much should it matter? 50%? Should it be the same?
Well, that's up to whoever is making the decision.
These teams that you play once should hold the same gravity as the teams you play twice?
In some cases, because if I could go in the case, Andy, Kennetra, very few teams, I think Arizona, Alabama, have as good a non-conference win as Houston does at Virginia. I don't think anybody in Big 12, maybe Texas and KU, Baylor probably. That's it. Not K-State. Houston beat St. Mary's neutral site. St. Mary's top 15 net. Houston beat Kent State. Oral Roberts, both of them. Oral Roberts and Kent State. Both of them. Kent State like 35. Oral Roberts 35. And you were there. The Cougs beat Oral Roberts by like almost 40.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's all part of non-conference schedule. It's not anything. It's not Team A's fault they're not in the Big 12 or the SEC. They schedule that's what they're supposed to do. Schedule tougher non-conference because they know the conference that they're in is not the Big 12.
But at the same time, some of the Power 5 schools, they have to schedule games against mid-majors or non-Power 5 conference schools to benefit those schools, those programs, those athletic departments. Those are buy games. So you kind of do a solid so that you can fund, so that whomever, whatever HBCU you want to pick, or whatever, Elon, if you will, so you help them out. So it's kind of, it's a detriment to your strength of schedule, but you're kind of a top dog until you play those games. But at the same time, so do you penalize Kansas for winning at Kentucky? I mean, that's a great non-conference game
for sure
on the road. It's not even a neutral site game.
Correct.
So like it's kind of hard to give a lot of support to your argument. I'm not saying it's not valid, but
no. I don't have an issue with anybody who has a net non-conference strength of schedule better than Houston. KU and Baylor have that. So I'm okay with them being considered for a 1C because that overall body of work is equal or if not better than Houston. But for the Longhorns and Kansas State, 120 and 295. No way.
So that's fine. You could be better than another team for one night. Great. Applaud. Wonderful. But if you have sustained success over the course of 3 months, I think that means more than being better than for one night.
And then my counter to that, Andy, the Houston Cougars have been ranked top 5 all year.
Probably might be number 1 next week again.
If they win Thursday and Sunday, that's what they have to do.
Right.
But we're seeing one of the issues, and I go back to what Bob Huggins said. Bob Huggins, he's more and more, the Big 12 is so tough. Huggy said, why do we even have a conference challenge? Why should we have a Big 12 SEC challenge? We should have that because our conference is so tough. So Huggy's going the route of scheduling weaker and weaker non-conference. I don't want that. I don't want that to be awarded for a 1C. Baylor had no problem scheduling tough non-conference schedule. If you're great all year. You're not just great come conference play. KU schedules not tough non-conference. I salute those teams. And you can also the Cougs played like what, Andy? 4 to 5 SWAC schools or, bottom tier programs, teams with their rankings of above 200.
Yep.
We thought that's too many. But they won at Virginia. They beat Kent State. They had neutral site over St. Mary's. All those teams did well this year. And that's why one reason why their net is 1 and their non-conference is as 62, considering 5, 16, 2 SWACs, a MEAC, a MEAC school. So they still have a strength of schedule better than K-State, Texas, and everybody in the Big 12, not Kansas and Baylor. Gonzaga has had to do this. If you're not a power program, you have to schedule tougher non-conference. But when it comes to games that you don't play in your conference, if you don't schedule, okay, you have no control over your schedule in conference. That's the league office. At some point, you're penalizing the teams for not being in the Big 12, or not being in the Big East, or not being in the ACC, whatever team happens to be the best conference that year. The last few years, it's been the Big 12. And like I said, for the Cougs, going forward, it won't be an issue for them. But Oral Roberts, because they're not in the Power 5 conference, almost everyone they get in conference hurts them because their conference is not a Power 5 conference. That's not fair. Reality? Sure, that's reality. Go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say you can make the same argument for Houston and what we've seen the past 2 weeks when Purdue lost And even though they lost as the number one team in the country, they stayed ranked number one because, I mean, granted, if Houston was in one of those Power 5 conferences, that wouldn't have been the case. The same thing this past week when Alabama leapfrogged Houston out. The Crimson Tide, they had the advantage that they had the head-to-head victory over Houston. But still, I feel like if Houston was a part of one of those Power 5 conference schools, you wouldn't see that hesitant of the voters putting Houston as a number one team. And like you said, if Houston were to, they have 6 regular season games remaining. And quite frankly, besides the Memphis games, and I think even if they lose Sunday at home to Memphis, that would be considered as, it wouldn't be the best loss from a national perspective. But Houston doesn't have the luxury to be able to have a bad outing and say lose to, today they're on the road to SMU. They have to play East Carolina on the road. They play Tulane at home. So they have to pretty much dominate, and even though they dominate the American Athletic Conference, that still detracts from the conference in and of itself, because they say, see, it's just Houston, and then they're head and shoulders above everyone else. Or if they lose, they're like, really? You lost to that team? Or when they lost to Temple at home.
Right, and we're going to take a quick break and come back and close it out here. Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E.
There's a 100% chance of a laugh thunderstorm. 4 men with different viewpoints take a movie, show, or documentary and review it uncensored, unfiltered, uncompromised, with no holds barred. Join BS3, Wilkes, King Doc, and H-Rap B as they take on Hollywood their own way. BS3 Network proudly presents The Forecast, where H-Rap B always predicts,
if I owe you something, I ain't got it. And if you need it, get it from God.
live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure.
And we're back to a Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E and also on the BS3 network. If you have a Roku streaming device, just download BS3 TV. If not, just go to bs3network.com. I am Kris Gardner, the head chef of the lunch break today, and the sous chef. Can you have 2 chefs, Kennetra? I'm not hip to that. Okay, so sous chef number 1 is Kennetra Pulliams from the Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus. And sous chef number 2 is Andy Yanez from Gallery Sports. So, Kennetra, do you see where I'm coming from? Whether you agree with it or not, you see where I'm coming from. On the point about the net and not being in a Power 5 program, you're being penalized for not getting conference win because you're not in a Power 5 program.
I guess, I think your losses, it depends on who you lose to. As far as, national rankings, yeah, it means absolutely nothing. But yeah, quality losses, I mean, gets taken into consideration. Who you lose to, when you lose to them, because at the time, let's go back to what I know most about. When Kansas beat Duke in the Champions Classic back in November, back then it seemed like a bigger deal than what it is now, because if you look at who Duke is now compared to the projections of who Duke was going to be, and even Bill Self said it, beating Kentucky, he said it's not, all it is basically it determines which line you're going to go up or down one seed line. Is it basically all that it really much matters. It's more for fans to get excited about and to brag about than it is. Because at the same time, then you ask, well, why isn't net a factor in seeding the women's tournament?
It should be. I mean, because I don't know why they created it and they don't use it. Yeah. That makes no sense to me. They adopted it within the last 3 years, but they hardly use it. But where are you guys' thoughts on if a team is not 500 in conference play? Let's say they're 7-9, or let's even go a little worse, 6-10. So 4 games under 500 in conference play. Should they be considered? Should they be a tournament team, an at-large tournament team?
Chris, this is when you go back to that non-conference slate, and then you get to see how they competed against non-conference opponents, which is why non-conference should matter. And obviously, you got to take into consideration in what type of conference they are. Like if you're in the Big 12, and you're 6-10, I think that carries a lot more weight than say if you're in the West Coast Conference, if you're in the American Athletic Conference, and you're 6-10 when you basically have no chance of making the tournament, unless if you outright win the conference tournament.
Texas Tech is what, 3-10 right now, Kennetra?
Mm-hmm.
If they finish 6-12 and their non-conference strength of schedule was 3-16, but they're 6-12 and they got 6 quality Q1 wins, which may be more than a team that's not in the Big 12.
Yeah,
Should they be a tournament team?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who were those other teams in consideration. But yeah, who did you be? Who were those quadrant 1 wins against? And do you have any bad losses? I mean, but the fact that Texas Tech is just coming off of a win over Texas, which is tied for first in the Big 12, that holds a lot of weight into projecting: should the Red Raiders be an NCAA tournament team, or should they be in the NIT?
All right, I'm going to post up Cole's comment as well. Teams that have under 500 conference records will have to make a huge impression in the conference tournament. Texas Tech losing first round, first day, they're done. First day of the Big 12 tournament. Should they still be considered for the NCAA tournament?
It depends on what they do over these remaining 2 weeks of the regular season.
No, I'm saying if they finish 6-12, that means they go 3-2 these last, or whatever. What are they? 3-10. So yeah, 3-2 these last 5 conference games, and then they lose the first day of the Big 12 tournament. So that means they're 6-13. Should they be an NCAA tournament team?
It's hard to say. I don't think you can just extract them. It depends on who the other automatic qualifiers are, and then how many at-large spots there are, and then you'd have to, position Texas Tech among those other teams that are kind of fighting for an at-large bid, and then just see what their resumes are to determine if the Red Raiders should be in or out.
Whew. Andy, what do you say?
No, I agree. A lot of it's hard to say on about like such a what if scenario, but I think when you look at Texas Tech's schedule, again going back to their non-conference slate, I think they get hurt where, like you said, Chris, really the only time they really played quad 2, quad 1 games in their non-conference was when they were part of the Maui Invitational, and they lost to Creighton and they lost to Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State in it of themselves, even though they're a Big Ten team, they've been struggling in their own conference play. So I think about it, I compare it to a team like Memphis, where they have much less opportunities for quad 1 games, but it's a big what if, because now Texas Tech has the luxury, like you said, they have basically every game's a quad 1 opportunity for them because of the conference that they're in, while Memphis would have a handful of quad 1 games. It's a conundrum, but I would say you would probably give credit. If I was in the shoes of the committee, I might want to lean towards giving maybe Memphis more credit, because a lot of their quad 1 opportunities had to come in non-conference. Like you said, something they could control, and if they are able to go in there and win those non-conference games, compared to, like I said, for example, Texas Tech, where they had their non-conference, their quad 1 opportunities came in the Invitational, and they lost against Ohio State and against Creighton. I think that should be considered as well. It should be a big factor, which, again, kind of going back to your argument, something that Memphis can control, something Texas Tech kind of had the luxury of not having to worry about it in non-conference.
And this discussion is what we did in the NCAA headquarters mock selection. Me, Rothstein, Jerry Palm, folks at Pac-12 Networks. This was some heated discussion. I mean, it was lively. Then hasn't been done since COVID and everything like that, but hopefully it'll resume going forward. But we were just like a behind-the-scenes look at how the committee works. Mm-hmm. So if we had these lively talks, I assume the actual committee did as well. Kennetra, in these final few minutes here on Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, what grade would you give Brett Yormark since he took over in officially, was it August?
Yeah. I don't know. because other than kind of solidifying the new media rights deal, being proactive in that before, say, the Pac-12 could get theirs solidified. So getting that done, that's great. As far as his resume and what he brings in, I think he's a visionary, but I think he's still just trying to figure out, okay, how to best position the Big 12 for growth. I mean, so now you've taken care of when, how Texas and Oklahoma are leaving, and how much their exit fee is, and how that money will be distributed amongst the remaining, Big 12 teams. So it's good to get that done instead of having that, that purgatory of uncertainty just kind of hanging in the balance. Like, okay, is it 2024? Is it 2025? Like, when is this all going to, happen? So, I do think he is being more proactive than reactive.
Kennetra, have you know about Andy's guarantee, right?
What's that?
That the Houston Cougars football team will beat Texas in October?
Is that game Austin or is that game
in Houston? It's in Houston.
October 21st. It's a guarantee.
Campus? Is it
on campus?
On campus. So not at NRG?
No. Come on, Andy. This is a new audience, man. This is the lunch break audience. They don't know about your guarantee about the Cougs beating the Longhorns October 21st, right?
They don't know about the guarantee. I don't think we have the sound effect in here to have that guarantee. But from my perspective, this is the first time that the Houston Cougars and the Texas Longhorns will play since, when was it? The 2002? Around that time. It's been 20 plus years since Houston and Texas played. It's been even longer since the Texas Longhorns were on campus, and quite frankly, it's going to be the last time that the two programs play, probably for the next decades to come after Texas leaves the Big 12 this season. It's on campus.
Unless it's a bowl game.
Yeah, unless of it. Yeah. I don't see that happening unless somehow. That's a conversation for a different day. This is going to be the first time on campus. It's not going to be at NRG Stadium. The crowd has to get up for it. The coaching staff needs to get up for it. I don't care if the Houston Cougars go 1-8 in their first league year in the Big 12 on the gridiron. That game has to be the Texas Longhorns, and I guarantee that after 20 plus years that those two teams have not met, it will be the Houston Cougars that come out victorious. Like I said, for those of you that don't know, we have this post-game show after each and every football and men's basketball game. It's called Let's Rage Cougs, which, by the way, will be live after Houston and SMU later today. Number 2 ranked Houston. But there will be Red Bull on that Let's Rage Cougs after football. I guarantee it, because that is how the Cougars celebrate after they win.
So wait, okay, so Tony says hashtag I ride with Andy, but he's throwing up the horns.
That's the H.
Well,
that's
this way it's H. See, that's why.
The
way it is backwards. Yeah, and see, that's why I don't like that symbol, because it could be confused. I can't stand that symbol that Kennetra's holding up. That's the Longhorn symbol. Okay,
horns down. There will be horns down.
You know what they say about those who do horns down? You need to do more curls to strengthen that wrist.
We're going to wrap it up here on Throwback Thursday on the lunch break. Kennetra Pulliams, how can folks find you on the internet?
See, there you go. That's different than.
Yes. Go ahead,
or in
Kennetra.
reverse. Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. Pre-game, post-game for all KU men's basketball games. And also on Twitter at K Pulliams.
And Yanez, same for you. How can folks find you on social media?
Yes, sir. They can find me on Twitter at @Ayanez_5. And most importantly, they can also check out, like I said, Let's Rage Cougs post-game show of Houston Cougars men's basketball and football after each and every game on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, which will be streaming live and then audio only wherever you get Potsdam at Jam on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And also be sure to check out Potsdam at Jam on YouTube.
And I'm going to close it out. I'm Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, HoustonRoundballReview.com, the HR Review on Twitter, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. Thank you, AJ, for giving me the keys to the kingdom one more time and trust me to be the head chef on the lunch break with my sous chefs, Kennetra Pulliams and Andy Yanez. Thank you, as always, everybody watching the lunch break. Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, powered by JM&E and also on the BS3 network. Final word from Miss Sybil Wilkes, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
It's Sybil Wilkes with what you need to know. Today, it's Thursday, or you know what I like to call it, Friday Eve, February 16th, 2023. Number 1, the 19-year-old white supremacist gunman who carried out the planned murders of black people in a Buffalo, New York grocery store last May was given 10 life sentences in prison without parole Wednesday morning. Before the sentencing was handed down, impact statements were read by relatives of those slain, when one of the people speaking was pushed past by a man and rushing towards the orange jumpsuit-clad shooter. Surrounded by guards, Gendron was removed from the courtroom but then returned and apologized to the families of his victims. Number 2, there's a new examination of the plight of black farmers among record land loss and ever-mounting debt. The allegation is that the USDA discriminated against black farmers by denying them access to low-interest rate loans and programs, causing them hundreds of millions of dollars in economic loss and record-breaking land loss through foreclosures. The Biden administration included debt relief totaling $5 billion for black farmers in the American Rescue Plan, but the program was swiftly blocked by about 12 lawsuits, arguing the program was discriminating against those farmers because they were white. Number 3, House Republicans are kicking off an investigation into the origins of COVID-19 by requesting documents and testimony for current and former Biden administration officials. Many scientists, including Dr. Fauci, said they still believe the virus most likely emerged in nature and jumped from animals to humans. But Republicans have accused Dr. Fauci of lying to Congress when he denied the National Institutes of Health funded research of the disease at a virology lab in Wuhan, China. Dr. Fauci has called the GOP criticism nonsense. Number 4, a 59-year-old black man by the name of Joseph Robertson was fatally shot in the head by a Jersey City, New Jersey police officer, Omar Polanco, who was white. Mr. Robertson's widow, Natasha, was also shot in the altercation and has filed a lawsuit saying that her husband never had a gun when he was shot. In released audio from the 911 call, there's a woman in tears telling the dispatcher that a man matching Robertson's description was following her with a gun. When officers approached, Robertson is seen putting his wife in a headlock and moving his arm out of his sweatshirt pocket. Within seconds, the policeman opened fire and both Robertsons fell to the ground with gunshot wounds. Number 5. With the pandemic-era rise of telehealth and therapy apps, sensitive mental health data is for sale, at times for a few $100s and with little effort to hide personal information such as names and addresses. Several senators, including Elizabeth Warren, Ron Wyden, and Bernie Sanders, have backed a bill that would strengthen state and federal authority against health data misuse and restrict how much reproductive health data tech firms can collect and share. But the data broker industry remains unregulated at the federal level, and the United States lacks a comprehensive federal privacy law that would set rules for how apps and websites treat people's information more broadly. Here's your daily inspiration from Yogi's Jewels. When you really love yourself, you can really love someone else. Join me today live on YouTube and Facebook at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central with a very special check-in and check-up for your health program as we discuss a very important topic, learning CPR and the importance of using it in the Black community. I'll be joined by the 4 female presidents.